With residential, you can get to the end of the project and a customer says,
Well, that just wasn't what I was thinking.
Welcome back, everybody. Joe Everest, the fence expert. Hey, one of the most common pieces of feedback we get about the Saturday morning live Ask the Expert segment is those things are long, and they're not wrong. They last about 3 hours, 2.5 to 3 hours. Sometimes, a few weeks ago, Caleb and I got into a pretty good discussion about marketing. I think it lasted closer to 4 hours. Nobody's got time to sit through 4 hours of listening to a couple experts talk. I get it. So Jeremy's created a new segment just for you guys called Hot Takes. It's usually a shorter segment of the longer conversation, basically hitting the hot topics, if you will, of that live segment. So without further ado, here comes this week's Hot Take.
Chris Hunt says, best advice for guys starting a new commercial fence company. Starting commercial is a little bit tougher, only from a cash flow perspective. Well, not only from several perspectives. The main one I would worry about would be cash flow. So commercial has longer turn times on your money. Typically, commercial does not give deposits. Now, occasionally they do. I understand that. Typically, they're draws on larger commercials, so you can do like monthly draws, or we're in the middle of one now that's a draw based on milestones. So we got 25% on purchase order being issued, 25% when all the material showed up, 25% halfway through the project, final 25% at the end of the project. Each of those milestones had their own payment terms. So the first one was net 15, meaning that we got paid within 15 days of having a purchase order issued. Once the material showed up, milestone 2 was net 30. So we got paid 30 days after that. Once the project was halfway completed, it was milestone 3. So we got paid 30 days following that. And then once the project was complete, final 25% was net 60. So 60 days after that project was complete, we got paid the last quarter of the money. Now, I was perfectly okay with that structure. That's a better structure than what you'll find in a lot of commercial projects. A lot of commercial projects are just straight up 30 days or 60 days after project completion, you get paid for your project. So you got to get your cash flow figured out, just because that can really put you in a bind. I mean, think about it. If it's net 60, you've paid for all your material, you've paid for all of your labor, and then you're going to wait for 2 months to get paid on that project. It's wild. Now, that being said, there are companies that specialize in commercial fencing. So one of the benefits of commercial fence is everyone is exactly clear mostly on what they want, meaning you'll get specs, you'll get diagrams. Now, you'll have to submit shop drawings to show that your product meets the specification so that it can get approved. All that being said, you get the layout of exactly where this fence is going. Now, a lot of times that's going to change, but at least you go into it knowing here's what I'm installing, here's how I'm installing it, and here's the layout. With residential, you can get to the end of the project and a customer says,
Well, that just wasn't what I was thinking.
now you can have a clear-cut scope of work and a contract and all the rest, but there's a lot more emotions involved with residential fencing than there are in commercial fencing. Commercial fencing is typically cut and dry. Here's what I want installed. Here's when I need it installed by, and here's how I'm going to pay you. It's a business transaction. So cleaner transaction, but cash flow tends to take a little bit longer. I mean, net 30 used to be the standard, 30 days. Now net 60 seems to be the standard. We have one client, their corporate policy is net 120. So you wait 4 months to get paid for your work. And you better believe we absolutely charge for that. And so the way we charge for that is to say, here's the base amount, 100 grand. What would it cost me to go take a loan out for 4 months, take a loan out for $100,000 over 4 months? What interest would I pay for that loan? And then we tie that right into the bid. Now, we don't go take out the loan. I mean, technically, we're loaning from ourselves, right? We are an internal bank where we're loaning this money. But if we were a traditional bank, what would we get paid for loaning out that money for 4 months? We bid it into the project. We don't get a lot of them because there's a lot of guys willing to do that work. They want that big project, right? They want the 3,000 foot of this or that. They want the 4,000 or 5,000 foot of this or that, or the really fancy gates, and they want all this. And so they'll bid lower on it, and then they get wrapped up in not having cash flow. they've got a piece of equipment that goes down that they need to get repaired. Well, they don't have the money right now for it because their cash flow is lagging. Beautiful thing about residential is you typically get paid when you're done. Well, you get a deposit. So we don't schedule a project until we get a deposit of half down. So that's nice. But then also the second part, the project's paid typically when you're done, or we give it 2 weeks grace. So we'll net 15 is the terms we put on residential projects, because some people feel like when you're done and you're at their door and you're ready to be paid, they feel like you're pressuring them into writing you this check, that you're trying to rush off the job and get on to the next one and all that. So we say, hey, you've got 15 days from the day we're done, 2 weeks. Open and shut the gates, walk the entire fence, walk it again. Make sure you love this fence before you write me the check. I want to be completely sure that you are 100% satisfied with our level of service. Typically, we get paid within a few days. They'll walk the fence, they'll write the check, they'll put it in the mail. It takes a few days for the mail to get to us. Cash flow in residential, a lot nicer. This probably depends on your area. Margins are also nicer in residential. So we do 50% gross profit, irregardless, residential or commercial. Commercial, there's a lot more guys. Like I said, they want the big projects. And so they're willing to bid it at, what used to be the standard. When I was a kid, the standard was 33% gross. You multiplied everything by 1.5 and you get, 33.33 repeating or whatever, 33% gross. So there's a lot of guys that are still really comfortable at 33% gross profit, which is wild in a day and age where prices are anything but stable. Prices for anything, prices for materials, prices for labor, prices for anything are incredibly unstable. One thing that 50% gross profit margin does is it gives you a little bit of cushion, right? So you've got some wiggle room in there. If I don't know, if the price of material jumps before we can put an order in, if we get a check on a Friday and we don't place the order till Monday, the material order for that project till Monday, and the price goes up over the weekend, we're still okay. If it's a few percent, it goes from a 50% gross to a 46 or 47% gross profit margin. We're okay. The guy that had 33% gross profit margin, if he's now looking at 28 or 29% gross, that hurts. That hurts a lot, because the closer you get to the razor's edge of those profit margins, the more often you get cut with it. We hear more yeses on residential than we do on commercial when we're talking about 50% gross profit. Profit margin's better, cash flow is better, but the projects are smaller. We'll have 3 or 4 residential projects where my dad runs our commercial side, that we're in the middle of a 6,000 foot project that will take 5 weeks to put in. His guys are on one project for 5 weeks rather than 4 projects in 1 week. So it's a trade-off. It is. But best advice for a guy starting a new commercial fence company: make sure your cash flow situation's figured out. Make sure you have a line of credit that you can draw against to try to float you through your first several big projects, and don't sacrifice your profit margins. And those are problems I see commercial guys have all the time.
All right, guys, that concludes this week's hot take. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Do you like the format? Do you not like the format? Let me know in the comments below. We're still figuring this out, and we could use your help. But for now, I'm Joe Everest, the fence expert, reminding you that good fences make good neighbors. And I'll see you next time.